Good morning, dear viewers, and welcome to another edition of the Today's Woman Show, coming to you from the studios of TV3, first in news, best in entertainment, by kind courtesy of BF Soap, Every Woman Knows What She Wants, and Lydia Female Contraceptives. With Lydia, you decide. Now, today in the studio, I've got two lovely ladies, and we're going to be talking about whether or not a today's woman needs a today's man. But before we go for a short commercial break, I'd like to give you a quote of today, and it says, "The strength of a woman is not measured by the impact that all her hardships in life have on her, but the strength of a woman is measured by the extent of her refusal to allow those hardships to dictate her and who she becomes." Welcome back. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors once more, and that's BF Soap, Every Woman Knows What She Wants, and Lydia Female Contraceptives. With Lydia, you decide. Now you can join in the conversation by simply going and giving us a comment on our Facebook page, Today's Woman on TV3, or following us on our Twitter page, and that's Today's Woman on TV3. I mentioned earlier that I have two formidable women in the studio with me. They're two Today's Women. To my immediate left, I have Kathy, who says she's not quite a Today's Woman, but she's getting there. And of course, Michelle, you've met them both on the set. You're both welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, why do you say you are not quite there yet?
I wasn't sure you were going to start there. It's interesting that you're starting with what I had to say.
I'm starting there.
I believe no matter how much a person has achieved, the person has not really fully achieved everything. And until I get to the peak of my life, probably the day I'll drop dead, then will I say I'm a today's woman.
You think it's when when you actually drop dead is when you'll be the today's woman? You'd have reached 30
your peak? Minutes to that time, because there's still so much about me that is about to be unraveled. So I'm not comfortable exactly where I am. I'm going somewhere.
You're still climbing.
I am still climbing. A lot to do.
A lot to do. But Michelle, I'd like to ask you, what would you say your definition of a today's woman is?
She's a woman who knows who she is and why she's here, to be perfectly honest. I think it's just that simple. I think that embodies everything. It shapes how we view life, and how we view relationships, and how we conduct ourselves. So I just simply say, knowing who she is and why she's here. I think we all have a purpose.
Do you think it's a phrase that people have used quite a lot these days without actually knowing what it means?
Yeah, they do. But I think Michelle has put it so brilliantly. Because until purpose is known, abuse is inevitable. A woman must know who she is. And like we said before we came on set, today's woman is given ample opportunity to becoming everything she can possibly become, unlike in the past. She's got everything to becoming everything, but then you must realize that your life has a purpose. And so today's woman is a woman who is confident in who she is and the quota she can contribute to society, but within the confines of who God says she is, not trying to be another person.
Okay. Now, when you say today's woman has everything she needs to be the best that she can be, unlike the past, what are those qualities? What are the qualities you're talking about?
I think for me, much of it is knowledge. It's so important because she's got all the information she needs, and she's got the God factor elaborately put across to us. We really know who we are now in God, or in Christ, for those of us who are Christians. And so she has all the information at her fingertips to becoming everything she wants to become.
Now, I got a couple of quotes which I want us to sort of discuss and see whether or not, they really mean what they do. And there's one that was a statement that was actually made that says, "The modern economy is a male epic in which women have found a productive role. But women were not its author." How true is this statement?
It may be true, but big deal. That doesn't make me feel any less than. It's interesting. She brought up the Word of God, and the Word of God says that woman was made for the man, which is a statement we don't like, because we don't read the rest of it that says that we were all made for God. And there's actually a protection in that statement of, yes, I believe that men don't do well without women, which makes us very powerful. God was the one who said that the man needed help. But is he the one who established things? Yes, he was here first. Adam was in the garden first. He established how things were running. But the woman was the one who became the period at the end of his sentence, the person who defined him as a man and who helped him complete his assignment. So in terms of that, when people say, oh, it's a man's world and it's a this and that, I always go, big deal. What does that mean? The man is not complete without the woman. So what are you saying? Does that make us any less than? No. Women are very powerful, because guess what? No one would be on the face of the earth if it wasn't for a woman, because we're all born through the womb of a woman. So there you have it.
Beautifully said. But I can see she's laughing because she has a take. She has a take on it. She has a take on it. She has a take on it.
Okay. It's so true what you said, but you know we discussed something
we
earlier
did. We said something earlier, and that's what I wanted to share.
Probably let me take a little bit further, because Michelle is talking about Genesis chapter 2 for those who are Christians. I know not everybody is a Christian, but you can easily embrace whatever is right somewhere else. If that thing is positive enough, come on, embrace it and move on. Okay, so God said it's not good that the man should be alone, and then he created the woman. That for me sounds like a woman becoming an afterthought. Which is an error even in the body of Christ. We are not preaching here, but Genesis 1:26 says, let us make man in our image, and he created them male and female. Eve may not have been in the garden with Adam, but Eve was inside Adam.
Exactly.
It's a mystery. And if we don't get this straight, no woman will ever have the determination to becoming everything that God had said she should become. Because when you read Genesis 1, in the beginning, the earth was without form and void. Where was Jesus? He was inside God. So even though God was the one who said, let there be, Jesus was an integral part of that creation. So the command was given to the man and the woman, Genesis 1:28. He said, God blessed them. The male and the female, gave them dominion. He said, be fruitful, replenish, cover the whole of the first. The two of them were given the mandate of having dominion. And so we've got to come to a point of realizing that life itself is a mystery, and that the woman is not an afterthought. Yes, you've got to respect a man, but everything you need to becoming who God has said you should be as a woman, even without the support of a man, is
within you.
Well, and let's take that one step further, because in Proverbs chapter 8 it talks about wisdom, and wisdom is called a woman by God. And wisdom says that she was present at the creation and assisted in the planning of creation. So the woman was always there, as Christ was there. Actually, before that, he kicked Satan out of heaven before Genesis happened.
There's a fullness of time for manifestation.
So when you read linearly, we have a tendency to think, you could say, woman was afterthought, but she was always in the thought of God and already created. She just hadn't manifested yet, because Adam needed to know that he needed Eve before he was presented.
Did he know?
He did not know until he named everything and saw there was kind after kind, and he was the only one who was alone. So then I'm sure that God he always creates the need in us before he presents us with the thing that we need, so that we will embrace it. Otherwise we won't embrace it. So when we think about the whole thing and we say, okay, man is the economy, and the economy is set up by man. Yes, but why? For women. Because when we go into advertising, everything appeals to the woman. Because the woman is known in advertising scientifically to be the decision maker. So she is the one who actually influences the man, which actually makes her more powerful, because influence is more powerful than authority. So when we complain about submission, I would say, again, big deal. What does that mean? Because authority is the policeman standing in the middle of the road. If I'm in a car with someone who influences me to run over the policeman, how much does his authority mean? God has all authority, but our heart influences us not to obey him, and we sin. So influence is actually a greater power than authority, because authority has to be designated, but influence is what succumbs to authority or not succumbs to it. So in the end, women are very powerful, and they need to know what that power is. And I personally, when I read my Bible, I don't see inferior women. I see women who were very powerful. They were strong. They moved and shake. They killed enemies. They changed the course of nations. So I think that we need to get out of the mindset, because attitude is everything. As I've written in my books, The Power of Being a Woman and the Diva Principle, I talk a lot about women getting their heads together to understand who they were created to be by God, so that they get out of that inferiority complex and realize that we all have positions. When you look at a basketball team or soccer or football, everyone has a position. Are they arguing over who gets to kick the ball?
No.
They each have their position that they know contributes to them all winning the game.
Yeah.
And I think that if we would get out of thinking that we're in a competition with men, and that rather we are partnering, we are on the same team for the common goal of winning in life.
That's right.
Then we play our position, we play it well. And we agree when that position changes, if it needs to, amongst ourselves.
You've actually, in this short discussion, covered two other things I was going to say, and one of them was that, I mean, everybody says it's a man's world, and do you think that it's had a negative impact on the way people think? You know, we've given men, we've kind of like given men more power because we say it's a man's world, when in fact, really,
It's everybody's
world.
It's everybody's world. It's neither man nor woman. It's everybody's world. You've got to contribute your quota.
And the same, and then going on to say that men complement women and women complement men.
Most
There's
definitely.
no competition between the two sexes.
That's right.
You know,
He's given us each different strengths and weaknesses and each different giftings that we both need. So I am not complete without a man in my life, and that doesn't mean I have to have a husband
That's
or
right.
a boyfriend.
That's right.
Just men in my life, men that walk with me and assist me in areas where I need help, and vice versa. A single man still needs women in his life to make him the man that he's to be. I mean, they don't do certain things well, and we also don't do certain things well. I think that God was very crafty in the way He created us to have those balance factors.
it's all about balance.
Yes,
isn't
you
it?
know,
all
men are
about
very
balance.
bottom line, and women are very instinctual. And so, I mean, a woman can look at something and say, that just doesn't feel good to me. The man's going, what are you saying? You know, the
can't
bottom
even
line
see
is
it.
this, you
Yes.
know. But if he listens to that woman,
man will make
then he goes, ooh, what a good decision that was later. Because she might not be looking at the bottom line the same way he is, but her instincts drive her to make choices that are good for both of them as well.
Brilliant.
I did say I had two formidable women in the studio, didn't I? We're going to go for a commercial break. Viewers, stay with us. Welcome back to today's Women's Show. And for those of you who've just joined us today, we're talking about whether or not today's woman needs a man. Today's Women's Show is brought to you by courtesy of BF Soap. Every woman knows what she needs or wants. And Lydia Female Contraceptives with Lydia. You decide. Now, it's no secret that the man has a huge ego. Would you say that the biblical quote, a man is the head of the house, has something to do with that? I'm going to ask you, Kathy, these two women, you know.
I'll let you go first.
Yes.
Okay.
Would you say that that has contributed? You know, people are taking the literal meaning and using it to their advantage.
Yes, I think it has a very, very, very detrimental meaning. It's been really used for the wrong purposes.
It's been misused.
Misused seriously, because naturally every man, including the boy you give birth to today, has an ego. And that ego, if not well managed, may have a way of suppressing the other person, because it makes the person feel, I know it all, I'm in charge and all that. Because you are the head, you must first of all understand who created you to becoming the head. Because if you do not know why he made you head and for what reason he made you the head, you are going to misinterpret or misconstrue the function of your headship and use it negatively against the people you're supposed to lead. God is the head over the man. And until a man realizes that God is the head, Isaiah 54:5, he said, your maker is your husband. That scripture wasn't addressing the female, it was addressing both the female and the male. So a man who will save himself the trouble of usurping the right that he's supposed to work in tandem with God to be able to appropriate it properly is going to take it negatively on the people he's supposed to lead. A man is only qualified and permitted to be the head if he's in submission to the God who created him. Because if you're not in submission to the God who created you, who is actually your husband. You know, most men, I went somewhere and I was preaching, and most of the men came and said, I had never known this. I brought scriptures that the Bible kept saying, I am your husband. You know, most men don't know that God is their husband. And they expect to be husbands to women. You can never play a role you don't know how it feels like to play under another person. So for every person listening, it's good to have the man as the head. But it's best to have the men submit to God first before they become the head of their wives, so that their ego will not send them on errand that they are not supposed to go.
Yes, and that is the order of it. It says that even though the woman was created for the man, that all were created for God. So it always points back to God, and it's a bigger agenda than our personal agenda. It's a kingdom agenda. The marriage is supposed to look like the relationship between man and God, so that it's reflected to the world, so they see how true love works and how partnership works. So what that means is, it's interesting that it tells men to love their wives, and then it tells women to submit to their husbands, but it doesn't tell the women to love their husbands. Why? Because if men lead women properly, the woman will automatically love. So it doesn't have to be given as an order. A woman will submit to a man who is leading well. The problem comes in when we choose men we can't follow, number one. Oh, they're cute. Well, are they wise? Well, they're just cute, you know. But the bottom line is that God holds the man responsible for the woman. So the man has a harder job. So even though he has all this ego and he wants to run around and say, woman, submit, the ultimate word is that we're all to submit to God.
That's right.
So we're supposed to submit one to the other, which means that we need to recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses amongst ourselves in a relationship and decide who will take care of what, and not get into ego about it. You know, because some men are not good with money. So does that mean that they should just keep going because of their ego and mess up the household finance? Or do you say, honey, this is your department. Take this away. Now, she might not be good with another area, which she now relies on him to handle. So that is, again, teamwork. That is actually what submission is. Submission is not a passive rollover, be a doormat. Submission is actually an aggressive decision to be a team player in your relationship. And
That's beautiful.
Yes, and to allow, you know, they always say too many cooks in the kitchen ruin the broth or the soup or whatever we would say here. So now when you look at it that way, someone has to ultimately be the chief. You can't have all chiefs in a relationship, and you keep yielding that to each other based on your strengths. So this becomes an understanding and a confidence in who you are and what you bring to the relationship, as opposed to leaning to cultural or even traditional roles, because God transcends culture and tradition.
Of course.
So when we come to him, it says now that our minds must be renewed, and that our lives are transformed because of that. Our relationship should be better. Life should work better because we are approaching things from a different viewpoint, from a heavenly viewpoint. Whether you're a Christian, whether you're Muslim, I don't care what you are. The Word of God just simply makes sense. And so the tenets are principles that work across the board, whether you're a believer or not. So when we look at how partnerships work, and we just become comfortable in who we are, I'm simply not good with that. I mean, I shouldn't have a problem saying, that's not my area. I'm horrible with math. Why should I lie and say I can handle it? You understand? So as it's really the ego. Pride comes before the fall. You know, and God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Why? Because a humble person will say they need help.
That's
so okay,
right.
you'll give it to them. If you're pretending you don't need my help, I won't give it to you. You see? So when it comes to relationships, I don't think that it's so much that I think there's been a lot of bad teaching on who a man is and what it means when it says submit. It doesn't mean that you stick out your chest and order me around. That's not what it is.
But that's what we understand. We take it literally, and that's what we understand.
And how protective God is of women, I love, because he says if the man doesn't take proper care of the woman, his prayers will be hindered. We don't ever preach about that. You know, that actually you get the lockdown, men, if you don't treat your woman properly.
You won't even go as far as God had created you to go.
Exactly. So when you think about that, and if a man who doesn't take care of his own is worse than an infidel. So there are expectations from God for the man before he says submit. If he is fulfilling his role, the woman will automatically submit. He won't have to force submission. Submission is an act of my will because I see you're doing a good job with our life.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. But it's amazing because, I mean, you just think about it and all we think is a man is the head of the house. And it just says, women, submit to your husbands and husbands must love their wives. And you just think, oh,
Audrey, it will surprise you. I came in on Saturday and on Sunday I traveled, so I came in. So I told one of my daughters to come pick me up from the airport, and as she was driving, she said, "Mommy, I'm so sad." And I said, "Why?" She said, "I attended a wedding yesterday, and I've been so sad." And I proved further, and I said the pastor came in and read "Woman Submit," and for all the while he was on the pulpit, he never said anything to the man, but told the woman to submit. If they don't submit, in his house, he's in charge, he's in house, everybody, and called out witnesses that he is the finality. The woman doesn't have any voice at all. And she.
But do you think it's a cultural thing?
I think it's beyond culture. I see it as the highest level of ignorance. I don't know, because all of us have culture, all of us.
Right.
But there is a level you take this thing to that I see that you are just devoid of knowledge. You are not wise. And I think it really has to do with people who have a problem with inferiority complex. It's a complex thing. If you have a complex, you're looking for everything to use to make sure that you are worshipped. You become an idol. So any man who sees himself looking for will I say acknowledgement, or looking to get power and whatever he feels he's not having enough from the wife, he should go for counseling. He should look for help. You know what? My husband once said something when we married Ailey. He said, a man who keeps saying, I'm the head, has a problem with the head.
Yes.
Because if you truly know you are the head, you can't be going about, drumming everywhere. You don't announce that. It doesn't come by you announcing the little things you do. Like she said, you know what? I will submit to you wholeheartedly if you know what you're doing. And submission is not one-sided. We've got to come to this place. It's both sides. The man has, like she said, I have my strength. I am a woman. A woman is supposed to be good with colors. I don't know colors at all. How I will come out looking weird. The guy has done a good job these 22 years. But he's a man who is masculine. But he has
a good eye.
Good eye is an understatement. Oh, please. And so will I say because I'm a woman, then I'll do red, black, yellow, green and all that. When I look, it's like masquerade appearing on the scene. So we've got to be comfortable in our strength and know that every relationship, mostly marital or even is bringing you to a place where you complement each other and stop bossing over people. Because there are some men who have made their daughters. Their wives are not really the victims alone, they are daughters. And they have sworn they will never marry a man like their
fathers. Yes.
So the cycle that you create can take on to the next generation. What are you trying to prove? Be real. Calm down, do what you're supposed to do, and honor will follow you.
You know, let me just interject because it's interesting. I wrote on this. So what if your husband is a fool?
Like Nabal was.
Like Nabal was. You know, Abigail was quite a smart woman.
Very, very.
You know, I mean, she picked her battles with her fool. And God replaced her fool for a king. Now, that doesn't mean that God's going to kill all our husbands, but perhaps He'll just bring the king out of them and decrease the fool as we learn how to do the dance with them, so to speak. I mean, when she had to, she kind of went around him and just handled things to save the household, you know, and then reported back to him. And of course, then he had a fit and then he fell into a coma and died. But Sarah, let's look at Sarah. Sarah called Abraham Lord. Abraham lied and said she was his sister. And that meant that she got shuttled off to Pharaoh's house because she was very beautiful and the Pharaoh had eyes for her. This goes back to Kathy's point about everyone in the relationship submitting to God. Because Sarah submitted to her husband in that instance, God rose up and protected her and struck everyone with illness so that she couldn't be touched and then ejected her from the household. So there is an order spiritually, I believe, that works, that even when that man is wrong and you handle things with grace, you know, you don't make him feel like an idiot, but you make your petition to God and then you handle the situation with grace. God then steps in because what happens is, as women, we see things usually more quickly than men do because of that instinctual gift that God gave us. We have a high degree of discernment. It's how we're wired as women. But how we present what we present is what gives us the effect that lasts. If I'm going to now rise up and be bossy to my husband and be naggy to my husband, he begins to resent my voice. Then by the time I've told him something 20 times, then I go and pray. The Holy Spirit sounds like me now when addressing, so he ignores both of us. Where isn't it true? It's true. You know, I mean, seriously. So we have to be careful of the overkill and how we present things. Can we not give that man an opportunity to rise? You know, I look at the story of Vashti and I think to myself, how more differently would the scenario have played out when the king called her to appear and she just blatantly said no and embarrassed him before the court? As if she'd sent a little letter saying, honey, you know you made a rule that we're not supposed to show ourselves, so what should I do? It now empowers the man to say, you're right, I did. No, don't come. You understand? But she took that power away from him and embarrassed him in the process. And I think that a lot of times, we as women, because we're in the zone of seeing, we bruise their ego and make them feel less than. And so what they do then is they dig in their heels, and then they demand us to do such things, as opposed to being open to seeing another way to approach it. So I think that how we say what we say and how we do what we do has a lot to do with the responses and reactions in a relationship.
Relationships.
You know, another dimension to what she just said, she brought up Esther's case. And I think the law of the land was such that if the man doesn't send for you. But you realize that if you read Esther chapter 4 verse 11,
She appeared
you
without
discover
being called.
a woman who the whole world believes she has everything. And she's enjoying her husband. Openly discloses, for 30 days this man hasn't sent for me. And I think today's woman should come to a place of managing emotions well.
Yes,
Because if you don't manage your emotions well, your emotions will manage you
that's true.
and dethrone you from a position of authority that you have. Vashti may have had a problem emotionally with her husband. And you know what? Men like to cover things up. Some men, anyway. And they want to put up a front. You know, you are having misunderstanding. And the man, oh, sweetheart, come around. And in your heart, you say, who is sweetheart? You have not been talking.
Oh,
And now you want to
3
paint an image. Please. I believe Vashti was in such a moment, okay, where they must have had, or they may have had some issues.
Definitely, if he hadn't called her for 3
every
months.
relationship has issues anyway.
And she listened to those
Okay,
friends too. I
yeah.
kind of think those friends chimed in and
That's
said,
it, that's
"Who
it.
is he to
Will
call
you-
you after 3 months?" And so now she's got
To show off.
got to show off in front of the friends.
Yeah. Oh,
You
and
see,
then it
so
cost her.
emotions, and
Yeah.
it cost her everything.
Cost her
So
everything.
we have to be very careful of our wisdom circle and managing our emotions, as she said.
Yeah. So basically, the truth of the fact is, every today's woman, as much because God has blessed us. I said earlier on that my grandmother didn't have the opportunity I have now.
No, did
Your
your
grandmother
mother?
did not. Great grandmother did not. God has given us everything we want now as women. We can become everything that we want to become. But that does not rule out the fact that we must respect the men in our lives. Okay. Some of them may not even deserve the respect, but I believe wisdom.
Yes, it's true.
Wisdom demands that the battle is not yours. So don't take on a battle that you know that you will never
You
be able
can't
to
win.
Okay. So Abigail did a beautiful thing. To be beautiful and intelligent and then be married to a fool is a very difficult situation to manage. And that fool is rich.
Yes.
If the fool is even poor, it's easier.
Yes.
But to marry a rich fool, because the guy is going to use wealth to want to
Manipulate you.
Okay, but wisdom gave her the ability to go round. But at the end of the day, I also tell women, you know, when Abigail was married to a fool, she had a name. But she got married to a king, she lost her name. Nobody knew her. Manage yourself well. Manage your environment very well. Because there's so much to learn, even in the lapses of others. Yeah.
Now, would you say that women have the same rights as men, though?
I would say in God's eyes we do. I think that the world perverts a lot of the things that God has set in motion. But I think that here is where it gets very subtle. I think that the world plays into the hands of men more, but no one ever argues with excellence. And so when a woman enters the scene who is excellent at what she does, Everyone's willing to pay for that. They don't care. All of a sudden, it's not a matter of if you're a man or if you're a woman. They want the product that you have. You know, the Proverbs 31 woman saw that her merchandise was good. And I think that sometimes we as women don't know that our merchandise is good. That we don't present it in a confident way that says, here's something that I have that you need, and this is the best. And so I think that if we get that mindset out of the way, that, oh, you know, the men are favored and women are not, and women get less pay and blah, 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 and we don't have these rights. There are women that have dispelled that throughout history. They just took their place and did what they wanted to do with themselves. I mean, if Amelia Earhart had ever thought, well, women can't fly, I mean, she would never have gotten in a plane. Come on. So in every era throughout history, we've seen women defy that, and it was based on their mindset. So I think that if you go looking for trouble, you find trouble. And if you go looking for acceptance and favor, you will also find that.
Right. We are created beautifully. But what makes us us is not the physique. Let your brain speak for you. Diligence in whatever you do. Diligence is simply giving, you know, very, very tender care and attention to whatever you have been given to do in order to arrive at perfection and excellence. You must be diligent at whatever you want to do. When you're diligent in your work, even though they may not like your face, they will like your input, and they will pay for your inputs. And it's best to come to a place where you place a value on yourself, place a value on the products you can deliver, and make sure that nobody talks you down. I don't believe in pride and arrogance, but I believe that if I have what you need, and I've worked on myself, I'm diligent with whatever I'm doing, when I come before you, I'm not just a woman. I'm somebody that carries what you're looking for.
Yes. Well, that's what Michelle said as well.
Yeah.
Now, would you say a woman is her own enemy?
I think so, to a great degree. I think we're all our own worst enemy. This is one of my favorite cartoons. This is a little guy, and he's on the phone, and he says, "We found the enemy, and it's us."
So we are.
Yes, so we are. Yeah. You know, I think that we hurt ourselves in the way we perceive ourselves, the way we perceive the expectations of others, and not knowing our value. I think that's huge, not knowing your value. You know, when designers do couture work, do you know that couture never goes on sale?
No.
It doesn't go on sale.
Never.
Because they know the work that they put into it. They know the value of it. And if you don't have the money, it's just too bad. They wait for the customer who does, you know. And I think that we have to have that sort of mentality about ourselves. I mean, we were created by the designer of the decade, God himself, who made us very unique, and a lot of time and work has gone into making us who we are. And I think that we don't take enough stock of what we have in us and the value of it. So we put ourselves on sale. You know, when I lived in the States, there was a store called Kmart, and they'd have these little blue light specials, and they were for things that they were for things that they couldn't move very well, the undesirable things. So they would announce over the speaker they were having a blue light special, and they would just knock it down to anything, and then people would just grab it because it was cheap. They grabbed it because it was cheap, but did they value it?
No, because it was cheap.
Because it was cheap.
It was cheap.
You know, I don't leave my jewelry lying around my house because it's valuable to me. You know, and I think that we shouldn't leave ourselves lying around, our bodies lying around, anything that we have to offer lying around. We should know the value of it, and I believe that we teach people how to treat us. So when we value ourselves, then other people treat us with value.
Respect. That's beautiful.
No matter what a woman has gone through, probably there's somebody listening to us now, and life has labeled that woman. Life has told the woman she's not good enough because of what she's gone through. Probably we are just addressing somebody who's been raped, and she's not been able to come off that trauma. You are not what had happened to you in the past.
Right.
Get help. There's so much. You know what? Even the mishaps that we go through can actually be
They
They're
make
blessing,
building
blessing,
blocks
yes, and a blessing
for
in
other
disguise.
people.
Yes.
Okay, today's woman is a woman who must rise up, no matter how life has beaten her down. Rise up. Your potentials are beyond your imagination. What has been taken cannot be compared with what is left.
That's right.
That's true.
We have so much
That's
left.
true. That's
You
true.
know, when they're dealing with antiquities and antiques, they actually like the scars because they're more interesting and they add to the value. So the things that are unbroken and perfect are not as highly prized because those cracks have a story to tell, you know. And so the things that have happened in our lives that have left cracks on our physique and on our spirits and our emotions are actually the things that make us interesting and make us strong. The cedars of Lebanon were desired for making furniture and ships because of their strength. And the strength came from them being broken, because every time the winds blew on the hills, they would bend them, and it released a sap in them that made the wood harder than any other tree. And so when we look at exchanging our wounds for weapons, or exchanging our wounds for the release of that thing in us that makes us stronger, we actually become more desirable because we've weathered some things. You know, people who haven't been through anything are boring and immature. They're childish. But you look at someone who's been through things, that's been broken. There's a special grace about that person that attracts people to them, and they have much more wisdom to share because of their experiences. So we should never allow the things that we consider failures, mistakes, to make us feel like we're damaged goods. Those things just contribute more wisdom and more strength to us, and they form the character that God is looking for in all of us.
In all of us. In all of us. I mean, like they say, gold has to go through fire to become this refined, beautiful thing that's
and it doesn't
sought
go
after by
through
everyone.
fire just once. It goes through it over and over again,
over
till every single piece of dirt surfaces and is skimmed off until it's crystal clear and you can see your reflection in it. So God is looking for his reflection in us, and it means a lot of stuff has to surface and be skimmed off before he can get to that.
That's a beautiful way of putting
That's
it.
right.
I'm enjoying this formidable women duo thing. We're going to go for another commercial break. You will stay with us. Welcome back to the Today's Women Show. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors once more, and it's BF Soap. Every woman knows what she wants, and Lydia Female Contraceptives with Lydia. You decide. I want to read a couple of comments from our Facebook page, and it's one's from Benedicta Abna Latebia Asiedu, and she says, yes, we always exist and live well without men. And that's to the question, can today's woman live without a man? And then you also have Karen Hepok. I hope I've pronounced that well. And she says, yes, because most ladies are single mothers, so it shows most ladies are already existing without men. So what are we saying? That today's woman is a single woman, or today's woman is a woman who does it all by herself? Literally, that's what they're saying. But that throws me back to our next thing that I wanted to talk about, feminism. You know, strong women are supposedly called feminists because they basically, I mean, what's a feminist? A feminist is a woman who believes that she can do it, who believes in her cause, who believes in women's causes. What would you say a feminist is?
Well, I find that a very strange dichotomy of a word, you know, because since when did feminine mean not strong? Again, I'm confused. You know, the world takes these things and twists them into something that is just useless as far as I'm concerned. Yes, I think that there's some causes that should be fought for women. Equal pay. If you do the same job, then you should be paid the same thing. Of course, that makes sense. But as far as getting to the point where we pound our chest and say we don't need men, or that we're better than men, I think that is an unnecessary and ridiculous conversation because it simply holds no truth. I remember when, what was the head of the feminist movement, Gloria Steinem?
Yes, Gloria Steinem.
Got married. And all the other feminists were angry at her. And she's quite the girl in her relationship and very feminine. And she had to reach back then and say, look, it's not about all of that. You know, it kind of crossed over to another murky, dark place that she never intended in the first place. It was supposed to be this movement for simple things like equal pay, women's rights. It was never supposed to become a war against men.
And that's, I think, that's why I said, because I'm just looking now at the definition of it, and it says, feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes.
Right.
That's all it is.
Exactly. It doesn't promote anger against men.
But then I think it was actually misunderstood at some point
Most
in time.
definitely. All the angry women.
Yes. Angry women. Who took it out on the men.
Yes.
Angry women. Anti-men. You know, became, I'm a feminist, and that's supposed to be you are anti-men. But it's basically
wrong
somebody. It's the whole thing of fighting, the advocacy of fighting for
reasonable rights. And you know, to address your comments, I always find a little bit of danger in those types of comments, because I would say that today's woman rises to the occasion whatever lot she's given in life. And that doesn't mean that I live better without a man. I just don't have a man right now, and I don't have a man, but I'm still able to function. And I don't just function, I flourish. I thrive whether I'm with a man or I'm without a man. And I don't, you know, make it the basis of I'm better off without a man. No, I don't, because we all need one another. We were created for one another. There's a dependency that God put in us for one another that's natural, and it's okay. So let's not get upset because we've had some disappointments with men and say, well, I'm just better off without a man.
But don't you think that you find a lot of women who do that now?
Oh, yes. I don't need
a man. I mean, I can go to the sperm bank. I can have children without a man.
And I think it's very dangerous.
Family without a man.
Because guess what? Your child needs that man.
That's right.
Because their identity comes from the father. It's a spiritual connection. It's got nothing to do with you. So that child still needs a father. Whether it's the one that fathered it, or the heavenly father, or an uncle that plays that place, especially if it's a boy. Boys get their identity from and so do women. You know, women women go looking for daddy in the man that they marry. So you've got to daddy. I mean, that's the book I'm working on right now, The Daddy Factor, because it colors everything.
It's too important to be ignored.
So to say I don't need a man, that's a lie. And it lets me know how angry you are at the moment. You know, we all want a man. Let's face it. You might not need one, but you want one. I want a man.
So do I.
Hey, you know, I don't have one right now. And life is not the worse for it.
Yes.
But I could see that it would put a little pep in my step and a light in my eye if I had one. And I would easily admit that. You know, so let's just face it.
It doesn't make you less of a person to admit that.
Let's put it in perspective. Let's keep the right man in my life.
The world doesn't end because you don't have one.
Right. I don't need the wrong man in my life, but I do need the right one. Yes.
I love the fact that she's the one saying this, because it's an encouragement to other ladies who are not married. Most women who are not married are so antagonistic to men. Some of them from the angry point of view. I love men. You know, it's time that we become real. If one man hurts you or two men hurt you, don't generalize it. All men aren't bad. And we need, most especially if you're a single mother, please, you need a man. Not a man that you'll be engaging in sex with without marriage, but at least a man who could show the father figure to the child that you're raising, who could be a father figure to the child that you're raising. We all need one another. That's the truth of the matter. And we've got to come to that place where we begin to celebrate this. And feminism, I think that women who are so angry and bitter at men and want to take it a step further to a place where they think that they must just advocate and fight for everything, it's wrong. Because you're going to go all out and even neglect, even if you're a married man, neglect nurturing your children, neglect taking care of the home, neglect everything and want to be a man. You can never be a man 100%. There are some people that you must take responsibility for, and so there must be a balance. Every woman must come to a place where they juggle whatever they juggle well, so that they don't end the outside that they wanted to probably impress other with and then lose the home front. You must juggle it very well,
because they are the same ones that'll turn around and say, well, it's hard being a woman. Well, it's hard being a woman because you're trying to be a man.
That's right.
If you would stay in your lane and be a woman, that's easy.
Beautiful. It's so true.
But now, so final words. Does today's woman need today's man?
Today's woman needs a man, but the man is not the complete defining defining sentence for that woman. You need a man if you're married and you desire to marry. But even without a man, you can still be everything God has said you should be. But celebrate the man that God will bring into your life. But don't suspend everything about you and sit down folding your hands waiting for a man. I think that is very prominent in the African culture. Most of the people, you just sit back there. I want to be settled because I'm not settled. It's a misnomer. You are settled without a man. When a man comes in, thank God for the man. But without the man, until the man comes in, please find your niche, find your destiny, pursue your purpose, and be everything. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to stand before God to give account of my assignment on earth based on whether I married or not. Okay, so we've got to be able to mark the clear distinction. You need a man, but the man can never become God to you.
Okay, Michelle, can you be complete without a man?
Yes, you can, but only in God completing you, because the hole in our heart is not a person-sized hole; it's a purpose-sized hole. So if we are in purpose, we are complete, and then God adds everything else that's needed to complete the assignment.
Well, I want to thank you ladies both for coming in. I hope those at home who've been thinking really doing away with a man know that indeed a man, we do need men, by all means, no matter how successful you are. A man, there's a purpose for a man being created, and the codependency, man and woman, there is a purpose in the great plan by the Maker. So I want to thank you guys for coming on the air. And I hope I'll see you again soon. It's been wonderful having these two formidable ladies here. And I want to leave you with a quote from Hillary Clinton, and it says, "I don't think feminism, as I understand the definition, implies the rejection of maternal values, nurturing children, caring about the men in your life. That is just nonsense to me." And beautifully put. I want to thank the sponsors of the show, and it's BF Soap. Every woman knows what she wants, and Lydia Female Contraceptives. With Lydia, you decide. Don't forget, there's a repeat of the program every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Next week, we're going to be talking about maternal mortality.